It's not on stun.
But a friend. We can have friends, right?
Lesson 1 of security. A Rigelian tiger pounces with no warning.
Lesson 2 of security.
There are no breaks in security because threats never take breaks.
That's right. Star Trek Strange New World, Season 1, Episode 6, Lift Us Up, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, is over, or has aired, depending on where you are. But we're just getting started here tonight on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader, joined with my cousin, Davan Skelhorn from Locutors of Trek, to review this episode, break it all down. Davin was in the captain's chair last week, so we almost.
No, I couldn't make it. I had to send Gowrod, son of Gowron.
Oh, that's right. Our cousin Gowron was there instead, and from the Klingon part of the family, and
Exactly.
he was with Kevin Millard.
Skelhorn.
Normally there are 5 of us on this podcast, but tonight only 2 of us couldn't make it. Kevin had his
threats never
graduation.
sleep or never take a break, and neither do we.
Neither do we. Like a Rigelian tiger, Davin, we are always ready to pounce. You don't know when it's going to happen. This was
the Rigelian tiger side of the family.
Yeah. From that too. We have lots of sides of the family. We got a tiger family. We got a Klingon family as well. So just to kind of get your sort of top of the episode feelings, reaction. What did you think of this episode? It was a little different than our first 5 installments, I think.
Yeah, it kind of was. I think I'm actually going to change my rating for last week.
Okay.
What
was your rating? Do you want to know what your rating was?
Yeah, sure.
You gave this a 9 last week.
Oh no, we're fine there. Okay. That's what I gave Spock Amok.
That's what you gave Spock Amok.
All right, so that's fine. All right, so this one I think is actually maybe my least favorite so far. Now, that's not to say I didn't really enjoy it, but to not spoil too much. I mean, you've probably seen it if you're watching us.
Yeah, you should have seen the episode if you're watching this podcast tonight, because we're going to be breaking everything down, spoiling everything.
To me, the most interesting part of this episode is what is to come after the ending of this episode. Like what the Federation's reaction and Starfleet's reaction is going to be to this. That's the interesting part to me. Like that's kind of where the episode begins, but it's kind of where it ended. So hopefully they pick that storyline up.
Oh wait, we got breaking news in the comments. Sam is seeing a movie in theaters for the first time in 4 years. Well, that's exciting, Sam. Welcome back to theaters. Although we're not in a theater right now. We're talking about the small screen, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 6. Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. Okay, and I thought like this episode ended on a down note. Not that like some Star Trek episodes do. They end on sort of it. It's not
with
resolved
a bit of hope, with a hopeful lining.
Kind of, yeah. I was left sort of feeling
in regards
sort
to
of
Mbenga.
Mbenga's, there's
the silver lining.
That was sort of the silver lining. But that was about it. Like otherwise it's kind of a disappointing episode in terms of like the actions of the characters. You kind of think that it's kind of this wonderful thing. And I think we're going to break down, like we'll go through the screenshots and we'll kind of talk about the various parts of the episode. But it was towards like the maybe the middle of the third act of this episode where I realized, oh, this is going to be a bait and switch. Like there's something up here with this kid and what his fate's going to be. It really reminded me of an episode of Babylon 5. Davin, of course, Jody and Kevin aren't here to groan about it, but there was an episode of Babylon 5 in its I think in its first season where basically in that show a doctor.
I'll groan if it's first season.
Yeah, it is. I think it was first or second season. I think it was first season. But like it was all this thing about like where sort of how do you judge the morality of a culture that doesn't have the same values as yours?
There's a lot of Star Trek episodes like that too, really.
Especially as I think it relates to children and how you sort of protect or don't with children. And obviously like a child here is sort of the sacrifice and several children before him of this civilization. What are they called? The species of this?
The Magellans.
The Magellans, yes. And I don't think we've seen them before in Star
No.
Trek canon.
I think maybe we've heard that before.
But
But
yeah,
that could be just like the Magellanic Cloud or something. Who knows?
But we found out that they had been invited to join the Federation at one point, and I was like, does the Federation just invite anybody they meet to join the Federation? Or
I think in these early years they did.
They're like, hey, you want to join? Come and join the club. We need members. Once
you have sweet medical technology, great.
Do you have sort of questionable choices as it relates to the treatment of children and your colonies?
How do you guys feel about human sacrifice?
Yeah, how are you about with that? I think that there's maybe a questionnaire that they should hand out before they extend the invitation.
Maybe a different but sort of similar analog as far as Star Trek episodes to this one goes is the one where Wesley falls into the flowers, because that's one where they completely disagree with the culture, and they're like, "Well, look, we're not doing our prime directive thing. We just really disagree with you on this, so we're not going to listen to you."
Right. And we see that a few times in Star Trek where it's just like, Pike even tries to intervene here in this episode to stop.
He threw some punches.
He threw some punches. It's all for naught.
Spear to the face.
Yeah, but even he's even kind of violating the prime directive while kind of going with his conscience, which he says he sort of says earlier in the episode. So let's just bring up. I got the screenshots just so we don't miss anything, and we'll kind of run through it. So we start off with a glory shot of the Enterprise. We see it entering the Magellan system, as it were. Pike's in the turbolift. He's given a captain's log saying, like, I was here like 10 years ago. Something almost killed him, a storm of some kind. I think he mentions a pulsar almost killed him. He's like, you don't tend to forget something like that. I guess not. Runs into Uhura in the turbolift, who is, she's going through her security training with Lon. I got some comments in our comment section that I was calling her Leon. It's not Leon.
It's not Leon. It's Laon.
It's Laon. Like Kahan, but Laon.
Laon.
Right, and
Uhura steals pretty much every scene she's in. She's quite delightful.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's one of the best parts of this crew. Considering that, of course, she's going to be compared to Nichelle Nichols. As
considering what they gave Nichelle, she's like already better. They never gave Nichelle anything to work with.
Not like this. Not with this much like personality and sort of nuance and sort of like given this very specific thing. But who plays Uhura in this show? It's Celia Rose Gooding. She's great. I agree with you. This whole cast I find has good chemistry together. Her included.
Great.
And
Pike is great in this episode too.
I would really say I guess this is his episode more than anybody else's. For sure. But she talks about how she's doing like this week, because we find out she like was it 2 weeks ago she was doing the engineering training with Hemmer, and now she's under Laon, and we're hearing about all the trainings, and this is where Pike mentions the lesson 1 of security.
Lesson 1 of security: a Rigelian tiger pounces with no warning.
No warning. He's
I like how he says it like Laon. He's like
Laon,
Rigelian tiger.
Rigelian tigers.
He's funny in this.
She's like, well, don't tell. Yeah, he's like, my lips are sealed. I won't tell the secret that you maybe skipped one of the lessons or something like that. Anyway, so Uhura ends up with Laon, who says,
Laon.
Did you enjoy your break, Laon? She goes, yes, I did. Thank you for asking. Well, guess what?
Lesson 2 of security.
There are no breaks in security because threats never take breaks.
That's right.
I like Ortega's. She's really grown on me too.
Yeah, Ortega's they're all great. They're all there's not a character here I'm like, oh, not this one. And how they play off each other, how they make fun of each other. It works really well. And pretty much as this is all happening, they get this distress call. Spock mentions there's basically a battle cruiser attacking a smaller shuttle. They come in to investigate, and they kind of say, hey, you're committing an act of aggression, guys. You need to stop this, or at least tell us why you're doing this. but they don't. Nobody answers. We even see some grappling hooks here at one point. Where's Jody? He loves his Enterprise grappling hooks. But I guess giving us an indication that there may be like even 100 years behind in space technology, maybe compared to like this Federation starship that they're encountering. This
the
comm officer
Majolans are like far more advanced than the Federation
in medical technology, but
and
not,
other technologies. They were saying
in some, but not in weapons technology, because clearly their ships are no match for the Enterprise. So there's definitely some variations here. So they kind of say, well, you need to stop, and then they start attacking the Enterprise, and they're like, he's like, damage, like nothing, like negligible, like it's barely a scratch. And he's like, well, I'm bound by conscience and duty to like stop this and find out what the heck's going on.
Look at that hair. Glorious.
His hair, yeah, that's a coif.
That's a peak.
This kind of goes on. Eventually, like they're like, hey, can you Uhura, can you just like attack it and like disable their weapon system? Lon doesn't even do this. It's just she gets Uhura to do it as part of the security or tactical training.
Yeah, for a split second I forgot that she was training with La'an, and I'm like, why is she telling Uhura to fire the phasers? What's going on here? This is highly inappropriate.
This is yeah, but on the job training, nothing like it.
That makes sense then.
And the ship they're fighting kind of moves into the way, like right at the last second, so they end up hitting it much harsher than they intended. There's kind of a whoopsie here, and so that ship crashes.
That's why you don't have Uhura fire the phasers.
Nope, you don't get the cadet to fire the phasers in a real situation. This. Anyway, so they try to they go to there's an emergency beam out needed on the shuttle that was being attacked. So Pike and Una, they come down to the transporter room, and then these three materialize, who we'll come to know in this episode as Laura, right? And then we got the first servant and Elder Gamal. But we find out that Alora, she's an old flame of Lieutenant Pike. She goes to Lieutenant Pike, so I guess he moved up the ladder pretty fast in the last 10 years.
Not quite a flame. Like he mentions that it was a bit of an unspoken thing. Like he confesses to have been flirting with her.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't like a relationship. It wasn't a full like. If this had been Kirk, it would have been like they would have almost been married, and then they didn't.
Yeah. Pike ran his Enterprise a little different.
Pike has a bit of. He's a little bit embarrassed, I guess, just kind of because this is from.
He keeps blushing. It's very cute.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
Yeah, but he's like, so he's clearly not. He's not exclusive to that captain Captain Patel, who we met in the first episode.
No,
that's obviously Fling, or they get together when they can. But there's there's quite a little bit of fun here, and then we cut over to Mbenga, who's reading to his daughter. There's some dialogue here about how she's like, you already read me this chapter. He's like, I don't know, it's hard to keep track of when it comes off. A bookmark Mbenga might help really. with this effort, but that he's, because she's of course got the leukemia, or the space leukemia of the future, Cymoleukemia. And she just beams out at regular intervals, and we kind of see that happen. It's almost like she's only got like a certain amount of time in this world, and then she gets pulled back into the transporter buffer because her deterioration can be slowed as much as possible.
Yeah, and he says he put it on a timer so it wouldn't be disruptive, but then it is incredibly disruptive in that moment because she's in the middle of saying something. So
yeah, exactly. Seems like you could have like a timer and then say, okay, the timer's up. Now I'm gonna beam you out. But he has it on automatic, I guess, just in case. Yeah. And we see how the sadness and the struggle that he's clearly going through as a dad.
Oh, man.
So it seems
I don't know if I've ever felt for a Star Trek character more. This one's hitting me right in the guts.
Yeah, this is rough. Hopefully it's going to work out, but I think I have a feeling it's not going to work out.
You shut your mouth. It better work out.
It's coming.
I'm invested in this working out.
Sam wants to know when the Enterprise recap is. That's every Monday night, Sam. Every Monday at 8. Unless you're talking about the Enterprise 1701 with Pike, then that's tonight. Anyway, so Chapel shows up. She calls him Bingo away because he's, we see the empty chair kind of foreshadowing. could that, could he lose this patient,
No, he
in the
cannot.
future? We hopefully not. We got Laura here. She's talking to Pike and to Spock and Lon in the conference room, kind of explaining a few things, a lot of which we'll find out later are untrue, that they don't know. She's like, well, maybe they're from this colony. We don't really know them. We don't really know what's going on. But there's some skepticism here, and that they don't allow outsiders and things like that. I that's my general recollection of this scene. Just kind of a fact-finding kind of thing. She's like, well, he's like, because we were attacked by that ship, we have to investigate why they attacked us, whether you want to cooperate or not. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
Even Spock gives him a glance here about this whole thing. Yeah. Down in sick bay, we got Mbenga and Chapel with the first servant. And this kid never gets any other name in the in it. No. It's just the first servant. Who we think is just like, I guess, an heir to the throne or some kind of young boy king. We don't know. Mm-hmm. We know that this other guy, the elder, he says, I'm his biological father, but it's more than that now. I'm more like his doctor and his father, and I don't know, like just
now I have only one patient. I'm like been forced to give up my practice, basically,
right. At one point she's going to inject him with like the subdermal scalpel, and he's like, you can't do that. No things are allowed. You're allowed to scan only. There's they can kind of show the scanner, show that there's some quantum implants here at work.
So there's kind of beyond Federation technology. They're like, what quantum implants?
Yeah, so medical technology wise, yeah, and a lot of their other technology, for that matter, seems much more advanced than what the Federation was at this point.
I mean, if they can do quantum implants, they could like apply that quantum technology to all kinds of things, not just medicine. Like they would have crazy technology,
like a quantum slipstream.
Sure.
Yeah.
They did say the warp was slow. He's like, how fast are we going? He's like 52 times the speed of light. He's like,
he said it's the subspace technology. Yeah, the subspace communications that Spock describes are kind of outdated. Yeah, so it seems, and like we don't really know the Magellans outside of this episode that I can recall. So it's kind of like this is a little bit new territory. We're getting to know the species. We know that they're private. They're technologically advanced. They're kind of suspicious of outsiders. Jody says
I agree.
Decent episode, but extremely predictable.
Yeah, my least favorite so far.
Yeah, like I just think it was less of a hit, but Mbenga's clearly intrigued and wants to get at that technology because it could help his daughter. He says, actually, that's our one rule: we don't share it. And he's like, but the Federation has a similar rule. And he says, well, except for medical technology, I guess. Yeah. So the Federation will share medical technology, but that's it. That's the only exception to the.
They've even sort of said that earlier in this series. He's like, we have these rules, but we don't let people die. Like when they were moving that comet, right? He's like, we don't just let people die.
Yeah, if we can avoid it. Yeah. Then we get down to the crashed wreckage of the ship that was attacking the shuttle from earlier. There's this really like long shot where we see like the hole get cut in, and then it's kind of sideways, and then
so like, however unlikely, we will check to see if your attacker is alive.
yeah, highly unlikely. Come in here, we see the sparks are flying. And Uhura is still in her security thing. We find out lesson 3 of security.
Congratulations, you just flunked lesson 3 of security.
Oh, okay.
Let your tricorder do the investigating.
Yeah, let your trike. That's lesson 3 of security. We never find out what lesson 4 and 5 are, for the record.
Ask my buddy Murphy. No worries, Murphy.
I gotta catch one of these live reviews one day. Gotta watch the episode still. Come on, man. You gotta get.
It's a great episode.
They've all been great on this show. And especially when you get security lessons as part of it, But Lon is definitely she's trying to teach some things. We're kind of understanding how she operates. Rigelian tigers never pounce. You never get to take breaks, and let your tricorder do the work. So far, those are the 3 lessons that we've been instructed with.
You want to skip the rest of this podcast and play Enterprise Bingo?
Maybe I do. Yeah,
we'll start with the one where we shoot each other.
Slacker!
Slacking.
Lead slacker.
Oh well.
That's my Strickland reference.
Dodge the lead, Murphy. Dodge the lead.
Yeah, so just going through, we see Alora's with them. She's like, I don't recognize any of this. Spock finds this device on the ground. He goes, well, that's weird. It was kind of random that he found this and then becomes so intrigued by it. But she's like, do you recognize it? She says, no, I don't know what it is. But she says, I do recognize this, which is this coin that she finds. And she goes, like, this is like part of like the special security force that protects the first servant, right? It's kind of like
highest military honor.
Yeah, I guess it would be like being in the King's Guard if you're in Games of Thrones or something like that. This is like what they hand out. But what
a knight of the round.
Yeah, she shows here that it's been defaced on one side, which is like a completely like a taboo. So that indicates that this is they're somehow against this, or there's some kind of like insurgency perhaps at work here.
Or a traitor.
Yeah. But we see here like Pike and Alora, they keep getting closer and closer throughout the episode.
She seems like a liar the whole time, though. Like,
she does. It seems like to Jody's point about being predictable. Like it seems like there's something like gonna come up here where we're not gonna like her very much by the end. But there's something. There's something.
Wink and a nod, I guess.
Yeah, but then we get down to this planet. We get down to Magellan, right? That's or Magella, which is a really
Magellas, they call it, I believe.
Magellas.
Yep.
It was a really awesome looking planet, like just in terms
cool.
of like the visuals we get into this.
Nice green scaped headway.
We see like these different buildings floating on clouds, which we had seen in the original series and some of that as well. But this was like never done quite this well. Going
because we
down,
find out why they're in the clouds later.
Yes, we find out later. We see here that Alora, she's a very important person. She's almost like the president of this planet, or she's like a very high up in the government. She's got her little her like
but a
assistant
scientist as well, because she does explain with the science she was working on before later.
Okay, so don't they say like science, service, and sacrifice is sort of like the creed of their yeah. But and she's like, well, there's like all these different things tonight. I gotta go. I can't invite. This was kind of earlier when they were still on the Enterprise, but she's like, I'm not allowed to invite like an outsider. And he's like,
but a friend. We can have friends, right?
What if you just invite me as a friend? And I guess that was permissible. So he's not there as an official Federation representative. He's just there as her friend, which, and we see he's got his phaser though. A phaser. He's a friend with a phaser. So it's the maybe the most dangerous kind. Up on the ship, we get Spock. He's got the device that he found earlier in the wreckage. Shows it to elder guy here. What's his name? Elder Jaemeel. Yeah. And he goes, I don't recognize this either. And then Spock and the first servant have this conversation, which I thought was, it's there to kind of help set up a relationship between them, to kind of also establish how smart the first servant is, how promising
and likable. Like a lot of kid actors aren't always that likable. He's very likable kid.
Absolutely. The kid playing the first servant, his name is Ian Ho. I would imagine. My guess is, I would bet you this is a Canadian actor. I'm just gonna check quickly.
But most of the side actors seem to be.
Yeah, he's from Toronto. Really, really great in this episode. How old was he in this? He's only born in 2010, so he's like, well, I guess he's 12 now. Yeah, but he just really good in this episode.
For a 12-year-old.
Yeah, well, they probably shot this a year ago, so he's probably 11 when they shot this. But I think the Spock's very impressed with him clearly in this scene. I don't think we learn anything new about that device other than nobody knows what it is or what it does yet. So there's that part of the mystery continues. Back on the planet, she starts interrogating or questioning these like guards, the first servant guards who have the coins, and she's like, "Hey, we want to see all your coins, everybody. Now let's show your bling." So they all take it out and show it, and they're all.
This is a cool scene. It's like that's like a scene out of like a Game of Thrones style show,
Yeah, this episode feels like Game of Thrones in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
Like their own credence to it. And she's like, "Wait, there's some damage here. What happened, buddy?" And he's like, "What do you mean? It's all good." But then all of a sudden,
casing is damaged. She's like, "Oh, there was an accident." Psh.
Yeah, he goes like he has like his whole panic, and then he runs away. And then he's
like, "May I see it?" And he's just
Yeah.
like, freak out.
Freak out, and then he runs
Yeah.
away and he shoots one of his fellow guards here point blank with this thing, and
Vaporizing.
quick disintegration. These staffs are with the knives on the end are not to be messed with. And then we get kind of this chase scene through like the garden where this guy is running away. They're chasing him. She's like, I know which way he'll go. We'll beat him off at the pass or right here. So he's kind of going through here, and they end up getting him. I think Pike tackles him by the fountain here. And he pulls out his phaser, which I liked this line where he's like, "It's not unstun.
It's not unstunned.
Don't mess with Pike when it's not unstun." What? He could have been unstunned.
Yeah,
it would
he could have been bluffing.
Yeah, but he's like, "I will shoot you right in the mouth. Don't worry. I will vaporize you."
Friggin' mouth, bud.
Yeah, so he puts his hands up, and we find out later that Laura knows this guy. She's like very concerned by the fact that
he was a high-ranking guard. Like a lot of people probably know that guy.
Not the wouldn't be suspected necessarily of being involved in this. He gets surrounded, and then he ends up pulling a knife to her throat,
which I thought was about to happen. Like he's starting to. I was like, oh, they're doing it. I was like,
that would have really made a Game of Thrones if they had
yeah, man.
gone for her. But she what is she? She overpowers him, right? Or she like hits him here.
Judo chops him.
And the other thing is like as they're going down to the ground, right? It's one of those situations where it seems like he was accidentally stabbed, but if we watch it, it's clear that she stabs him on purpose.
Oh yeah.
Because she doesn't really want this information to get it to Pike. The whole thing where she's like flirting with Pike, but doesn't want to tell Pike the truth, and then she kind of does, and when she does, it kind of we'll get to that at the end. Meanwhile, Uhura is eating noodles in the mess hall. When we get Sam Kirk shows up, he's like, "Hey, I heard you're working under Lon." Sam Kirk shows up just to like drop a joke, and then he'll be off in the episode. He's like, "Tell Lon that you can have some rest and relaxation on me." But right then, Lon shows up and kind of tells him to fuck off. Right?
He's just like, "Oh, well, I like to avoid. I fear conflict." Basically, he's like,
"Yeah, I'm conflict averse," and she's like,
"Yeah, I'm conflict averse."
That's why you're not in security. See you later. So she shows up with Uhura with like this box of like memory chips or whatever that she like procured, and she's like, "Isn't this against regulations?" She goes, "Well, probably, but it doesn't matter because you're gonna do it."
That's why I'm not running them through the system.
Yeah, which we learn is lesson 6 of security.
Lesson 6 of security: know when to bend the rules.
Know when to bend the rules. That's lesson 6. We never got to find out what lesson 4 or 5 was. But I'm hoping. I think those probably just cut out of the episode.
Yeah.
But she leaves Uhura with these tapes. What she found in the ship. She's like, figure out what you can find out from them. And you're the linguist. Figure it out. See you later. Lots of homework for Uhura here. Back in sickbay in Benga with Elder Gamal and the first servant, they're kind of looking at. He's kind of talking about the hypothetical of like how he would save his daughter. What's the technology? Like he's kind of just probing him as a fellow doctor for what they might be able to do, or what might be able to set him on the right path. And we see here that the first elder, who appears to be sleeping, is actually listening, which we'll find out later. Is he'll kind of look up that file, he'll look up his daughter, and they'll meet later on. Back in the planet with Laura and Pike, they're kind of in the chateau here, or whatever it is, like the mansion. And the conversation they're having about what happened earlier with the guard kind of turns more flirty all of a sudden, and then it's like, hey, let's you like me, I like you, let's get on. And that quickly kind of turns into a bedroom scene, which goes a tee going over here. He's talking, she's playing with his hair. They're in bed together. I talked about the first time they met, and she's like, I found you. You couldn't fly a shuttle. She's like, I knew how to fly it. I just knew how to fly it in the right direction.
It's like I just flew it somewhere I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, Pike's a hairless man too.
He is indeed.
Or at least he shaves it all off. Anson Mount with that coiffed hair. and everything else. But yeah, he's
Or maybe
like,
it's just all gone silver and it's hard to see.
yeah, it's just transparent. That's probably true. Just lots of them in bed having this conversation, clearly bonding more, I guess, to like really set up the whole betrayal here at the end when you know, she turns out not to be such a on the up and up. But yeah, like especially on the rewatch, it's clear it's not going to work. And then back on the ship, on the Enterprise, La'an and Uhura talking about what she found in the research, and basically what we find out is that security the tapes reveal that colony that we learned about earlier that had been attacking them or was probably responsible for the attack, that they're not just some distant colony that they've never heard of, that they're actually a colony of Magellan, because that the language is just too similar. Like the roots
are the same.
Yeah, and they're like, well, if that's the case, then why would they lie about it? Why wouldn't we, what's going? There's more and more things that aren't adding up in the story as we go on, so that they're not very trustworthy. It's seeming like, or there's definitely things being hidden, but it's really how can the crew of the Enterprise kind of figure this out in time seems to be a problem. But Leon says, good job, Uhura. You know, you should present this to the captain. She's like, I'm not going to take credit for your work. Which goes on here. We see, here's Mbenga. Was this food for his daughter? Is that what he was showing up with? Or was this for him?
I thought it was going to be for the first servant because he asked about food earlier. He's like, you have any food?
Oh, maybe it was. Yeah, we never. It seemed it served. But
I don't think he was expecting his daughter at this point because he brought her out, the first servant.
Right? Yeah, he must. Yeah, so first servant pulled her out of the transporter buffer because he's like, these are all the places I would hide. Again, kind of just emphasizing how smart this kid is. We see him like creating like this little
hopscotch out of noble gases.
Yeah, he's like the noble gases, which are completely harmless, just reinforcing that he's like a genius kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you? We don't really know what the requirements of being first servant are. If you're just born to it, or if you had to be this super smart kid already. But we'll find out that you're basically going to be turned into a living computer. That's kind of like your prize. Your
processing power.
Yeah, but these two have become friends, and Minga's daughter and the first servant. They have like a little bit of a good time here. Eventually, they put her back in the transporter, and he says, thanks for everything. But this is where they call up Pike to the bridge, because I guess at this point they've kind of explained the whole thing with the languages. He's like, we don't want you to Laura to hear this. And they kind of show it's Prospect 7, definitely a colony of theirs.
Lon has a funny line there too. She's like, when Uhura's like, "You want me to translate all these?" She's like, "What? You don't speak English?"
Yeah. She's but this like, there's more and more lies. There's more things, and Pike's now starting to get pretty suspicious of everything that's going on. So as a Spock, they're kind of breaking this all down, and then all of a sudden they get a call come down to the Chief Kyle here. Got his hands.
It's funny last episode. They're like, "No, Chief Kyle, he's so mean." Like, apparently he's a mean guy. He always seems fairly pleasant in the scenes we see him in, but apparently he's the worst.
And Vega says, like, Elder Gamal and the first servant, they just left sickbay. I couldn't stop them, and they're now in the transporter room. They're ready to leave any second. And so Pike goes down to stop them. He's like, "Hey, he's safer here on the ship than going wherever." And we see them just kind of get beamed away all of a sudden. And I love how he's like to Kyle, he's like, "Who told you could beam them away?" And he's like, "Nobody. They just beamed them out on their own. It's not my fault. I can't be mean to you, Captain, but if I could be mean to everybody else, I would be."
He does look a little mean, doesn't he?
Yeah. Find out who beamed him away. They call down, but we see Elder Gamal. He gets beamed back. And then they go up to the ship. They're trying to catch up to the ship that they think has beamed away the first servant. Sorry, not the first elder. This red alert kind of kicks off, and they put the ship into a tractor beam, and then they try to go to warp here in the end. Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
It ends up blowing
it's bad if they keep trying to do that, Captain.
It's bad.
You don't want to be holding on to them while they're warping.
No, but it ends up blowing up anyway. He tells them to disengage the tractor beam, but it's kind of too late. We see like the look here on, I forget this officer's name.
Me too. They mentioned the names of her and the.
Is it? Oh, it's Mitchell. It's Mitchell.
Oh, okay.
Her name's Mitchell. She's like, whoops, that's like an OF me kind of look. Like I just totally, I was trying to disengage the tractor beam and it didn't work in time. There's kind of like this stunned look on here. Everyone thinks the kid's dead. We find out later maybe it would have been better if he had. But
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, so he calls down to Laura. There's a real like sorry about what happened here. It's a tragic loss, and there's just she kind of hangs up on him and says, this is no good, Chris. This is about as bad as it could get. So he calls down. He goes, I want to know how somebody got beamed off here. They end up calling Elder Gamal to the conference room here, and we learn lesson 7 of security. Davan
Just demonstrated lesson 7 of security on you. Leave no stone unturned. I usually require cadets to look under Mugat and breathing stones for that one.
But we find out, that Elder Gamal, he tried to make this look like it was just like him beaming down to the planet, but it was really, he would kind of set this up because he had already taken a detailed scan of the first servant and himself so that they could transport him away. They only would have been able to do that with like having their medical scans on file in the first place. And, they kind of bust him here. And then
good
Spock,
science stuff. They give us good science explanations.
Yeah, it's good. It's good detective work, and it all makes sense. It's all logical. Spock then starts explaining to Pike that like I've got some scans here. I don't know, and he ends up figuring out that the first servant is in this like little pod thing or whatever it is. This
love scanning for life
forms. Yes, tiny little life forms. Pike finds the kid in this thing and pulls him out and says, well, they're gonna be happy to see you. Well, you don't even really know. He's like, well, my people need me. The kid wants this too, which is even more tragic.
Well, he's been indoctrined and brainwashed into thinking, and they don't tell him how horrible it is. I don't think, because he seemed pretty surprised later.
Yeah, it gets a
or
little.
Maybe it just became more real at that moment to him.
But now we think, oh, it's all happy that this coronation can begin. The kid's alive. He's not dead. So there's kind of like this misdirect here, where he's waving to the crowds in the court. Again, like the planet, like just the scenery of this planet is incredible. It feels like a real place. Very regal, and they're kind of going through here. Pike's down there to observe it. They're all in their traditional things. Everything seems to be going so well.
Pretty good here. But we find out, Una goes to see Elder Gamal, starts talking to him. Like, why did you do this? What made you do it? He's like, I broke everything I believe in. I went against everything for the kid. And this is really where you start to realize that this kid's in probably danger or is not going to do well, because there's more. It's not that so much that we're not supposed to like him. I don't think, like the dad here, until we realize what he was really about. The first servant, continuing his little coronation. This guy behind him, who you can kind of see here in the green, he reminded me of that episode from the original series, who was brainwashing all the kids, with the kind of remember all that. And then back on the ship, they're like, well, we need to get through the Pike and tell them that there's something fishy going on here. And they're like, well, we can't. They've raised shields. We can't get communications through. And Una's just like, so you're telling me like the one time we need to get through the captain, we can totally not. So like the Enterprise is powerless to contact him. Can't remember what Spock says here, but he can't really seem to help either. And then we continue with the first servant's ascension as he heads into this. I guess what it is a massive machine computer. These glowing strands are like, I think, meant to be like fiber optic cable of some kind, or to kind of represent that kind of thing. And there's kind of just like this real, like, Pike doesn't know what the hell's going on at all, but as the audience, we're starting to catch. We're like half a step ahead of him here, and as we see the other, I guess the old first servant get kind of taken out, we just see like sort of like this thing. It's just like this. The kid actually knows what it is right away. I mean, he's like,
he knows. And so we just see this cloth on it. So they pull off the cloth. Pike pulls off the cloth, and there's just like this look of horror as we see this, like the old, it looks like just a withered husk, right?
Oh yeah, they just like torture him to death, basically.
Yeah. And there he's like, no, you can't do this. The kid kind of goes in willingly, but as they kind of start to close things, you see like the fear and panic start to hit him. Pike starts to fight him. It's all for naught. You see like sort of this it's rough. And then this, oh man, it's like almost like got Borg-esque vibes to it as they kind of like hook him up. I guess all those quantum implants he has would kind of tie into this as well. And then he's like all of a sudden just part of the machine or whatever, and he's kind of just left there. And she'll go on to later say, she's like, oh yeah, he's aware of it and it's complete suffering, but it's the sacrifice we make here. This is like pretty dark stuff.
It is very dark.
And then Pike gets knocked out, and as like there's kind of like a transition where she's like above him, and then he wakes up later on and she's still above him. She's like, hey, guess what? All good. He's hooked, the kid's hooked up, all done. And he's like, I want to leave. I don't want to be part of this.
No, he's like, I'm gonna go down there and like take him off the machine. She's like, that will kill him.
That will kill him. It's the time to save him was has come and gone. So I guess because
he goes and sits back down, which is interesting.
Right. When they thought he was dead earlier on, when Alora's talking to Pike through the view screen, she's like, basically like, this is going to be the end of our civilization. Like it's going to be rivers of lava. So everything that seems to be holding this planet together with the floating clouds and the paradise, the utopia they live in, is all maintained by this machine, which can only run on this kid. And they don't even understand why. They've looked into alternatives, but can't go. But it's why like that
was what she was doing. That was the science she was pursuing 10 years ago.
That's what she was looking
to try to find an alternative.
Yeah. Silver Metal Tavern saying this was a creepy dialogue scene. I love it. Yeah, it was like she's so fully in on it, right? Like she's
a believer, man.
She's a full-on believer. She's like, well, maybe once upon a time I thought about trying to change our ways, but it was futile. More Borg-esque things.
Yeah, like it's funny because they're like wondering why the people of Prospect 7 would live there and like leave paradise. So, but
this is why
find out Majalis isn't paradise, and it doesn't even look like it from orbit. Like it looks red and lava-like. It is like, and
right.
So like. Yeah, it's just like a barren lava planet that they managed to somehow like live above in the clouds. Kind of like almost like, some of the theoretical Venus stuff that like if we were to settle Venus, it would be in the clouds,
But, right. Aside from like the super high temperatures and pressure that they deal with there. But yes.
Yeah. Well, there's technology to be needed yet. But
Pike's not having it. He puts on his boots or whatever. He's out of here.
Those boots are made for walking,
and walking's just what they'll do.
Yeah.
He beams the hell out of here. I don't care if you're sad about your thing with Pike getting, obviously.
Yeah, really. I'm like, crocodile tears.
See you never is kind of where I was left with this. Back on the ship, and Benga has got more of this research. It's kind of the beginning of the research because what's his name, the dad of the first servant, he's asked to go to Prospect 7. He's basically asked for asylum, in which they kind of have granted. Well, like we'll take you to the other colony and you can live out your days there, because they're not gonna probably treat him too well for trying to kidnap the first servant and
try to destroy their entire planet, basically. Or like, if you believe what they're saying.
Yeah, so now he's
who knows if the planet would even be destroyed, like if they didn't do that.
They don't even really know. They just fear it would be, right, without this thing. So at this point, they're willing to take it, I guess. And they couldn't just there wouldn't just be like another kid in line. It seems like he had to be like sort of genetically engineered or something.
Yeah,
like that.
So it's like it's not this random process. They just decide to genetically engineer a certain kid.
And they have to kind of know when that's going to be.
Pretty shady.
We might get a return to this one day.
I hope so.
Yeah, later in the series. But because he's now an Ackhouse, he's a little bit more willing to bend the rules, including like helping get a treatment started for his daughter, for Mbenga's daughter. And so that's kind of where this scene goes. So that's like the one. Do you say the one ray of hope, or the one silver lining of this episode that comes out of it? but because we see like what is it, Kaijochemia, Signachemia.
Yeah, it's like
Is that name-
cynochemia, yeah.
Cynochemia.
Or signochemia, is that what he says? Something like that.
What's her name? Alkaya? That's her name. Anyway. But then back in the quarters, Pike's just staring out the window, staring at the sun with his whiskey. Because there's more allusions to the fact that, like, he's going to die in 10 years. That was kind of part of the conversation he had earlier. Could the future be changed? Can fate be changed? I think, the fact that knowledge, what does that do to you? And,
well, that was her play on getting him to stay, too. He's like, Federation medical technology won't be able to help me in 10 years. She's like, but if you stay here, maybe ours can. Like,
maybe, yeah. But he would still have to be come through. We know that won't happen. We know that he won't end up back on that planet. At least not after his accident. We know that Spock's eventually going to drop him on Talos 4 to live out the rest of his days there. But yeah, like the episode for me was very kind of a downer, but I think an interesting one. I think I think they did a pretty good job of like not giving it away, although it seems that there's more to these Magellans or whatever than especially Allura than we're seeing here, and it's just like how quickly they can get it. But I think overall, I'd say that this was well crafted for an episode of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Lift us where
Fantastic.
suffering cannot reach. Davin. So let me get into our ratings here,
which is a well-crafted title because they've lifted their entire planet above the suffering.
Yeah. Silver Medal Tavern says great episode. Let's get into our ratings. Yeah. Jody's already given this an 8.7 out of 10. I'm going to give this I give this like an 8. This was good, but
8 for me as well.
8 for Davin.
Just because I'm waiting for the other half of the episode.
Did you watch Memento Mori? Episode 4, the one where that was about Lon and her the Gorns.
Oh, the Gorn. Oh, 9. That was like Balance of Terror.
We are prey. It's the Gorn.
Would you say 8.3?
No, I said a 9.
Oh, 9. All right, 9.
One of my 2 10s, couple 9s, couple 8s.
An 8 now. Yeah. And as of a few hours ago, this had an 8.5 on IMDb. I'm just going to check where it's sitting at right now. It is down to 8.2 with 227 votes. So
terrible. Well, it's still above where we rated it, I guess.
Written by Robin Wasserman and Bill Wolkoff. And so Bill Wolkoff co-wrote episode 3, which was Ghosts of Illyria.
I believe Ron Wasserman used to write a lot of Star Trek, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, maybe it related there. But anyway, I think we can call this a Pike episode again.
Yeah, it's whoever does the opening log. It seems to
which was him in this case.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I think there is. I don't know if we have a title for the next week's episode yet.
Just like Prodigy all over again.
Just like Prodigy.
Progeny.
Progeny. Where are you, Progeny? Strange New Worlds. Just look if it's been announced yet. Yes, the next episode is called The Serene Squall.
Interesting.
The Serene Squall. I'm sure it will be good. All these episodes, like even though I this was maybe my lowest rating so far, I still liked it. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's still a very enjoyable show. I think that there's a lot. This is probably my favorite new Star Trek show in the new era. Even though I love Lower Decks and I love Prodigy.
Picard's good.
That Picard. I'd say Picard's. I'd say I like Discovery more than I like Picard, but that's just my. I know. Oh my, Sulu. When George Takei was here, he'd be very.
I can say do not.
Yeah, I think that for me, Picard hasn't really worked, but I seem to be out on a limb there. So it's
last season started and ended strong.
I don't think it even
Got a
ended
little-
strong for me.
Oh, no.
It's yeah, but that's
I
okay.
thought that added a lot to the Q character and to their
Yeah.
relationship.
I think if they had never done it at all, it would have been better. But we're not
Yeah,
here to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it another day on Locutors of Trek, perhaps.
Over on Locutors of Trek, where we'll debate all that. But
Debate 9, we'll throw that one up.
throw that on debate 9.
Yeah.
I have a lot of battles with Adam to come, so I believe
True.
that's the challenge to come. So thank you for being with me tonight, Davin, and breaking down this episode. You should also check out our other podcasts here on Live Long and Podcast. On Monday nights, we cover Star Trek Enterprise. We're going through all the series. We're now into season 2, going through each episode, discussing it, reviewing it, rating it one by one. We just did most recently Carbon Creek. We'll be doing season 2, episode 3 very soon, which I should have this ready, but I don't.
Dave, you appear to be wearing that garment backwards.
Am I? No.
Your hat garment.
My hat is backwards. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the comment?
Yes, that was my comment.
It's a Pike and Mbenga story. Says.
Yeah, it's carrying on in Benga's story for sure.
Yeah, he's the B plot. I would agree with that. Our next episode of Enterprise called Minefield.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I think it's a Romulan featured one. And also now coming back on Wednesdays, in its new day, will be Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch podcast. We left off in the middle of season 5,
The best shit ever.
2 months ago. Now that our schedules and have died down a little bit, we're ready to come back with that on Wednesdays. Star Trek Deep Space Nine at 9ish with Jeff Mader. We'll be coming back with the 2-parter, which is what do they call those episodes? In Purgatory Shadow and By Inferno's Light will be our next
That's the
review.
good stuff.
We're getting to the good stuff, right into the good stuff. So check out that one. Also check out our other channels, including we got Trivial Debates, which I need to get a trivial debate going in the near future. It's just been we just came off our ball hockey tournament and some of the summer events, so we will be getting that organized, as well as Super Mader Brothers podcasting, where we talk about a lot of reality shows and scripted shows that are not related to Star Trek. We just wrapped up Survivor season 42, as well as Big Brother Canada 10. Big Brother USA season 24 coming to us late June and early July and all the way the rest of the summer. So I'll probably be doing that with Jaemeel Robinson. I don't know if we're going to do 3 times a week. We might just do once a week just to cover what's happening in the show. And what else? There's the main, and then of course check out Davin's podcasts. He's got Locutors of Trek, his Star Trek theme channel. What do you got coming up on Locutors of Trek, Davin?
We're gonna do a follow-up to our last debate 9 here soon. Launch another Class L probe, and then we have a regular episode on the comedy of Star Trek coming.
Oh, very good. Well, Star Trek is very funny, I think too.
Very funny.
And then
on X-Rated, we got we go. X-Rated, the X-Men Anime Review Show. We're getting to the end now. Actually, the next one will be the last episode of season 2.
And then what's after that? There's 3 seasons, isn't there?
There's 5 seasons.
5 seasons. So
there's lots to go. We're not halfway through the series yet, so lots to go.
Right on.
Next, so we're on Reunion Part 2.
All right. Well, check out X-Rated every Tuesday, right? With Andre and yourself?
Every Tuesday, yep. Tuesday at 8 Atlantic time.
8 Atlantic, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. All right.
You forgot about Mountain.
Don't forget about the Mountain Men. All right. Thanks for being with us.
Mountain Time.
The Mountain Time. Lifting us up where suffering cannot reach.
On the mountains.
Yes. And and we'll be back next week for Serene Squall, the next episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Thanks for being with us, and live long and podcast, and we'll be back next time. All right. And don't forget lesson 2 of security.
Lesson 2 of security.
There are no breaks in security because threats never